Hello and welcome back to Cali Bros and Cryptos. I'm Ian, and that's Shane. And today we want to talk a little bit about inflation and deflation and all the inflations as it relates to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not necessarily going to talk about inflation specifically, but I do at least want to talk about the devaluation of money now, which in this particular case is considered inflation within our particular society, um, but just from also a standpoint of different general or generational ideologies. So, for example, what the boomers, and I'm sorry for saying boomers, but what the baby boomers said back or thought back in the day, had to do with, okay, you need to save cash, you need to save cash, you need to save cash. Make sure you put money into your savings account. Put money into your savings account. Um, and that was actually really good for them back then. And we can go ahead and get into why in a second here. But today's generation, putting money into your savings account is doing nothing but really losing you money, from a millennial Gen X perspective. And so just like that particularly needs to change. We also need to be able to change our mentality of how to be able to protect our wealth and how to be able to go forward with that. And obviously, Bitcoin is one of those ways to go ahead and do that. But and just some of the different ways that we can go ahead and use cryptocurrency in general is going to do a great job of being able to help preserve wealth, but at the same time, I do want to explain why. So that's basically what we're going to go ahead and get into here. So Ian, let me know if you have any questions about what I just said, and hopefully I can go ahead and break those down and help them out for you.
Nothing. I mean, nothing too specifically. I guess like we think of money, and I see this. Get my master's in business, right? One of the big things I always thought about was, and actually I just had this conversation at the company I work for. When we give money, let's talk about like the minimum wage thing, right, for a minute. If we give $15 an hour to someone, and and that's we have a certain amount of workers, and that costs us X amount for 1 year or 2 years or however long we're anticipating to have those employees, then that's going to be, say, $1 million, $2 million. We have to eat that cost somewhere. And I know people think that these corporations walk around with tons and tons of cash on the side and have tons of money. That's really not always the case. Smart corporations keep a very, very minimal cash reserve, and that's for emergencies in the company. Then they need to.
And that would be called, the liquidity of available within the company. So
Yeah.
when you hear that word liquidity thrown around, liquidity is basically the amount of money on hand to actually buy things with.
Well, and there's literally, God, in the finance classes, like there's probably literally 8 dozen different financial tools and financial ratios you can look at to kind of get an idea of the health of the company, and that's one of them is the liquidity ratio. So how much liquid assets does that company have? Because fixed assets, too much could be bad. But beside the point, if we start to look at how much we're giving minimum wage employees, that's going to increase the cost, and that cost needs to be eaten somewhere. And almost 100% of the time, it falls onto the customer. So even though, and of course, it's not just the minimum wage workers. Those minimum wage workers get bonuses. Their bosses get bonuses or increases in salary. Their bosses get increases. And you have some really, really righteous companies that say, I'm the CEO and the executive team, and we're never going to take a pay raise. Or we're just going to, go out of profit of the company, which is great. But the responsibility they bear is going to pay more than someone working on the front line. So basically, cost increases on the bottom level go all the way up. Those are going to be eaten by the customer. You have to increase your prices a little bit. And all of a sudden, the minimum wage workers, who it really hurts is the person on the bottom. is that minimum wage worker who is making $1 an hour more, but everything around them costs $1 more, so they're actually making much, much less. So kind of to circle that back around, you have the valuation of money in its essence is, even though I'm making more, I'm actually making less, if that makes sense. And that's going back to what you said, is the devaluation of money, because it's inflation versus the devaluation of money.
Correct. And yeah, I know the inflation rate, I mean, you have to have some sort of, I mean, I guess you don't have to have inflation, but generally, over time, the generally accepted inflation rate is about 2%. And if you go to your job, and you get a cost of living raise every single year, it's that cost of living raise is usually going to be 2%.
2 or 3, yeah.
Or 3% at some places as well. And that's kind of generally accepted. Like minimum wage 50 years ago is nowhere close to what minimum wage is now. And yeah, that's fine. But kind of going, like, to kind of cycle this back, yes, there is going to be an increase in inflation with things, but how to preserve your wealth is kind of what I want to go ahead and get into this, and how cryptocurrency kind of ties into this as well. And also that idea of liquidity within a company, because back in the day, the interest rates that the government, they print out money, they go ahead and give that money to the banks. The banks have to pay an interest rate on that money that they're getting from the government, as they go ahead and pass it out. Now, if that interest rate is 2%, then the banks are going to go ahead and give that money out to people who want houses, or people who are starting businesses, or people with student loans. They're going to give it out for a rate obviously higher than 2%, so they can go ahead and make a return on the money that they went ahead and got. So back in the, when the current baby boomer generation was, the interest rate for the Federal Reserve is very, very, very high. So what ended up happening was the banks, they didn't necessarily want to take out as much money because they had to go ahead and pay back the government at a higher rate, right? So they didn't take as much money from the government, which actually decreased the amount of cash liquidity, or the amount of cash they had on hand to be able to spend within the bank for a while. So what they did was they told people, hey, you put your money in our bank and we're going to pay you maybe a little bit less than what the National Reserve is, that we have to pay back the National Reserve because we need to make something on our money. But we're going to pay you to put money into the bank so we have money to be able to hand out to other people.
So it increases their liquidity.
To increase their liquidity, yes. To increase the amount of money that they had to be able to give out for loans and things like that. So they didn't have to rely on the government. So they didn't have to necessarily rely on the government in order to get their cash reserves to pass things out. Can you still hear me? I know my video cut out.
Yeah, no worries. I can still hear you.
Okay. Hopefully my camera will come back on in a second. I think I hit a chord.
I will be here.
All right. But in that case, though, putting money in your savings account was able to get you a good return on your savings. But in today's world, the interest rates, I know they're going to be going up, but the interest rates are near zero. So because those interest rates are close to zero, the banks can't really pay you any money to hold money in their savings account, because it actually is cheaper for them to get it from the government rather than get it from
us. Yeah.
Exactly. So essentially, savings accounts aren't going to make you any money anymore, which in the baby boomer generation, that was their mentality. Put money in savings, because I'm going to go ahead and get a return on that money. That doesn't happen anymore. So we need to find other ways to be able to go ahead and do that. Now, if you circle back to our video on the 4 different types of cryptocurrency, the 5 different types of cryptocurrency, one of those cryptos is called a stable coin. Stable coins are a liquid supply of money of a coin that is directly pegged to the US dollar. Now, there are a lot of exchanges that need the liquidity in order to be able to give out loans, give out things like that. And they will pay you a lot of money. They will give you a high percent return in order to get that liquidity on their exchange. So that's one thing that if you can find different sites, different exchanges, and we still need to do a video on exchanges.
Yeah, that'll be up there.
I know that's because that's a big one. But if you can find an exchange that offers you a high rate of return just for holding a stable coin, not even Bitcoin or some sort of fluctuating asset, but just a stable coin, US dollars, you can make that essentially that same percentage that your grandparents made back in the 70s, 60s.
And to give you guys an example of that, so Shane and I use Voyager, right? And all of my savings that I had, I put into USDC, which is, as Shane said, a stable coin on Voyager. I'm earning 9% interest on that. That's paid out every month. It's not a CD locked up that I can't access. And also, I can take it out and either to use to pay or something. There will get to a point where I just have a card that's linked directly to that account. So similar to when you could have, and the best part about it is there's no minimums. You have to have a minimum to earn interest. I think it's $100. But back in the day when you had to have at least $10,000 in your savings account to earn 4% interest and things like that, and if you don't, there's a fee associated with it. All that's gone. And it's so simple, the way that they have it set up. So that's where we look at something like a stable coin, and we just use Voyager, but there are tons of options out there where you can earn a lot of interest and still have it be exceptionally liquid, and you can access it immediately. So like you can pay for it directly, whether it be on a debit card or taking it out to transfer over to a more payment savvy vehicle at this point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, all right, I am back now.
Hello, Shane.
I know. I don't know. I must have bumped a cord or hit a button or something.
Listen, we are real here. We're not trying to put on a show. We're just two brothers talking about cryptocurrency and financial well-being.
And keep in mind, this is not financial advice. This is literally just stuff that we have picked up along our journey that we are trying to go ahead and streamline and share with you.
Like, imagine like you just are sitting at a table right next to us at a coffee shop and we're just talking about this stuff. That's the way we see it. Don't take anything like this to heart. But it works for us, and we'll tell you what works for us, and we'll be honest about it. I mean, we're not making anything here.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very, very, very true. All right.
But so, what else do you want to regarding Bitcoin and inflation? You want to touch on that a little bit? I know we've talked about it before, but
if you look at Bitcoin and inflation, the old hedge against inflation, and it's a tale as old as time, talking about gold. Gold has been the hedge against inflation for forever. But if you look at the last 10 years, gold has actually decreased in value. Not very much, but within a one year period from December 31st of 2012 all the way to January 1st of 2022, gold went down in value. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has gone up close to 1,000,000%. Um, so, it yes, the day-to-day fluctuation in volatility is it's big. It's a scary risk. I'm not gonna lie. Like personally, being invested, watching your portfolio go up hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars and then go down tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, it is a scary thing um, in the short term to go ahead and watch. And I get that. This isn't necessarily for everyone. But on a long term scale, if you're willing to put X amount of dollars into it and not watch it every day and look at the value in 5 to 10 years, um, you're going to see nothing but it go up over time because there's a limited supply and an increasing demand.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too that we always look at is the OTC market, and we can do a whole other video on that and how one buying doesn't affect the price. But there are a lot of the times these big institutions are buying right now because they know how valuable it's going to be and they know there is a fixed supply, so they're buying it in a way that does not affect the price. So you could have people who are buying 100,000, 200,000 Bitcoin, but the price is staying the exact same because it's in reserves on a lot of these exchanges or miners who kind of have it there and are just selling it for profit.
Exactly. Yep.
So, with that said, anything else you wanted to add, Shane?
Just to make sure that the only thing that should be going up over time is hopefully the amount of views that we're getting on our videos and the amount of thumbs up we are getting on these videos as well. So hopefully that will just keep increasing over time too, and the number of subscribers.
See, I think that would be a safe hedge against the U.S. dollar is the amount of likes. So if we can go up more than 8% in the next 30 days, I think we'd be good.
Share with a friend.
All right. Yeah, send it over if you find our content interesting. Please leave a comment if you hate us, love us, or just have a question. And we'll see you guys next time.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Cali Bros out.